Wilson Morales from Black Film TV. How's it going? How's it going, guys?
Hi, Wilson. Good to see you.
Good. So obviously,
Excuse me.
Stephen King has a lot of books. So one can't say they've read all of them. What came to you first? Was it the book or the offer to do the series? Ben?
It was the offer to do the series. Actually, that's not true. It was I got sent the scripts for the first two episodes,
Mhm.
and I thought they were really different and kind of I thought they had a really interesting tension to them. You kind of had this one Stephen King world that I felt like I knew quite well, which was kids, trapped in this institute being experimented on and willing them to get out even from the very get-go. And then this other storyline, which is a quieter kind of attention with
Yeah.
this guy who's carrying this ex-police officer who's carrying this kind of shame with him, and he's looking for a quiet existence, and you wonder how they connect. And I thought that was already very interesting. And then I read the book, the entire book, before kind of signing on to the project as well. But big fan of so many of Stephen King's adaptations that it's a bit of a no-brainer as an actor. You know the story is going to be structured in such a way, and the characters will be full.
For you, Joe, coming into this, how did you read the book after you got the part, and how would you relate to the character you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, because I didn't want to invest and love the book so much and then not get the job, which was, what 99% of the job is when you're at this level is rejection. So it's yeah, but I love the book. And sorry, what was the second part of your question, Wilson?
How would you relate to the character you're
Ah,
playing?
yeah. Um, I mean, you always try as an actor to relate part of yourself into the character you're playing, and I think definitely not the genius element of Luke. I don't think I relate to him in that way. However, the cheekiness and the kind of defiance, I think I share that with him a little bit. Yeah, but that's just what I've brought to the character.
I didn't read the book, so I'm thinking like Ben's character. You never know where you're going to go with his character. Like you said earlier, they're two different worlds. So I'm thinking like, is he somebody that just whose memories got wiped out? And they start to remember that he was one of these guys.
Mm.
That's what I was wondering. I
I
don't
thought
know.
that I thought that about one of the other characters actually.
Mhm.
I thought that same thing about one of the other characters in the story. I wonder if they had been someone whose memory had been wiped somehow, but I can assure you that is not the answer to any of it. These are not the twists you're looking for.
Having said that, how do you relate to the character you're playing?
Well, I think I've played a lot of baddies and a lot of untrustworthy characters, kind of murderous, marine psychos, various douchebags, and I think that that's been the last sort of 6 or 7 years for me. So I think I was very keen to get back to playing a man driven by decency and someone to whom it was important to be a good man and who had a moral compass and wants to be a force for good in the world. It's important to them to act to live his life that way. And so I think that is something that is important to me as well. And I think that so that was it's always easier, I think, when your core values align with
Yeah.
with a character. But then it's also looking for the things that make that character different to other characters you've seen on TV or other characters you've played before. And I think that the sort of uniquely interesting thing about the Tim in the show is that he is aware of one of his major flaws is that when he smells a sense of injustice, he can't help himself but to sort of scratch at it until he can help, even if it's not necessarily his jurisdiction, or if it's not on him, it's not really his business. But I think that it was an interesting awareness to have about himself as a character. So I think the kind of self-awareness and the moral compass are things that I really connected to.
Congrats on the series. We won't spoil anything more. It's good that the stories are well constructed that we don't know what's going to happen per episode. So we'll talk down the road. Have a good one.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
mate.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Wilson Morales from Black Film TV. Hello, folks. How's it going?
Hi, Wilson.
How are you? Pleasure to meet you.
This is like the year of Stephen King. Every 2 weeks, there's something from Stephen King. It's a movie. It's an adaptation. I
It's
just did The
true.
Life of Chuck. The Long Walk Home was. It's like, oh, whose idea was to say, let's take this book and let's make it into a series? Jack.
Well, okay. So Stephen sent me the galleys and said before it was published, and said, "Do you like work?" We had already done Mr. Mercedes, which he was a big fan of, and he said, "Do you like working with kids?" I said, "Yes." I said, "But it's tricky because you got to find the right kids." And on this experience, it's certainly in this show, that was also part of our journey and really true. And I think we lucked out. But Stephen sent me the galleys, and I loved it and felt that it shouldn't be a movie, which would be 110 minutes that we'd have to shrink down to be in the X Kids. And we always wanted this to be about real kids who happen to have extraordinary abilities, but were real, relatable kids in a horrific, relatable environment where true believers, brilliantly played by Mary-Louise Parker, etc., really believes in what she's doing to save the world. And it's horrifying and terrible, but not a sadistic. This show is not sadistic. It is horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might have wandered off your question. I apologize.
Okay. Ben, what's the challenge of taking this book and then breaking it into episodes? But at least try to have an episode that leads into the other. Maybe whether every episode is a cliffhanger to the next episode and so forth, and faithfully adapting to what people know from the book.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's always very important to me. I mean, I know that people like to say that a streaming series or a streaming season is an 8-hour movie or a 10-hour movie. I get what they mean, but I also think that that's sort of underselling it. I mean, I think if it's really an 8-hour movie, you haven't done your job, because I think every episode needs to have some satisfying arc and some take you on a journey that also obviously plays into the larger journey. But that is part of the challenge, to find those chapters and to find where to end them that, have momentum into the next, but also feel like you've completed something, with it discreetly within the episode. So, and look, there are a lot of challenges also to adapting Stephen King. I mean, for one thing, the books are so internal. And, part of the pleasure of King and his writing is that he gives you access to the character's deepest, darkest secrets, the things that they're not admitting to anybody. And you have to figure out a way to make those things external so that they can read on screen. And that's a real challenge, but also a pleasure.
And be dramatic.
Yes, indeed.
Where does this fall within, when people think of Stephen King, initially we think of it's going to be scary, but then you have The Life of the Chuck, which is totally different. That's how good his background has been throughout the years. How do you best sell this series? We've got a glut of stuff that's coming out in theaters and streamers. How best do you sell the series, The Institute, Jack?
Well, when Stephen first sent me this, it made me think about the Parkland school massacre, which had happened a year or so before. And I remember seeing those kids and seeing yet another tragedy in America that seems to be happening in our country more than other places, tragically. Nevertheless, I saw these kids rise up out of the horror of what they experienced and stand up to the adults. They became this political force who said, you guys screwed up, whether they were pointing their fingers at the NRA or the local politicians. We're going to fix it. You screwed up. Get out of our way. And I thought to myself, children shall inherit the earth, but first they have to save themselves. And when Ben joined me on this journey, we talked about that as being very much the heart of the show. And absolutely, Stephen King from the beginning said, finding the right kids is essential because we have to care. So I think a younger audience will be drawn to this along with adults. I think that it's a very timely show in terms of how do we come together and survive in horrific situations, which is certainly very timely.
Well said. Congrats to you both. Let's keep it going. We'll talk down the road.
Thank you. Thank you, Wilson.
Take care.